we next move on to the next item, which is the draft statement of intent. And Claire is here, and she is joined by Miriam Dean. So Miriam, lovely to see you here. Miriam is one of the new board members on the interim AT board, and so great to have you here, and Stacey up as well, and see Dean lurking. But just want to acknowledge the new board, Chair Andrew Ritchie, obviously joined by Miriam, Rob Clark, Dale Delacare, who's returning from the old board, Adrian Young-Cooper, who was a previous chair of the AT board back in 2020 to 2022, and obviously Shane and Morris. So lovely to have you here, and all yours.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Claire Gomez toku ingoa. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Acting Manager for the CCO Governance and External Partnerships team. In a minute, I will hand over to Miriam Dean. Some of you will know Miriam from her role in leading the CCO review in 2020, and also as the Independent Chair of Council's Audit and Risk Committee. Miriam will present how Auckland Transport has responded to the letter of expectation that was issued in December last year. And just a reminder that the SOI, the Statement of Intent, is one of the key accountability documents between the Council and Auckland Transport, and in this case it will also be for the new Public Transport CCO once legislation has passed. So we've done things a little bit differently this year. Due to the transport reform, we did ask that Auckland Transport develop their draft Statement of Intent into two parts. Part one, which was to outline the program of work for the work that will transfer to Auckland Council under the Road Controlling Authority. Part two was to deal with the new passenger transport or public transport CCO. It's a little bit challenging for Auckland Transport to write, this SOI, given that they are in a period, or we expect to be in a period of transition, during which time this SOI will come into effect, and also because a number of decisions still haven't actually yet been made, and Council will be making those decisions over the next couple of months. So we will need to work very closely with Auckland Transport, both in finalising the SOI, but also, and probably we might need to, should some sort of decision substantively change, modify the final Statement of Intent. We do have a drop-in scheduled for this Friday, the 1st of May, and at that point, you as elected members and the chairs of local board can provide us with any further feedback that you would like in the shareholder report that will come to this committee next month. I think the final point I just wanted to note before I hand over to Miriam is that we are currently considering a number of the accountability documents between Auckland Transport and Council. We are going to need to look at making some changes to them, operating rules, a statement of performance expectation. We will have shared responsibility in this new world with us looking after the road and some of those functions. That actually enables public transport and it enables services to run. So in Auckland Transport, or the new public transport, setting its performance targets, we actually have to agree to those targets. We are also accountable for those targets, and so we are looking at how we can make that clear and how those accountability documents can work better in the new world, and we will come back to you on that. So I'd like to hand over to Miriam now. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, good morning everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to formally present Auckland Transport's 2026-2029 Statement of Intent, which has been prepared to work very much within the context of transport reform. The Chair, Andrew Ritchie, makes his apologies. He's somewhere in Spain today. Let me make a few introductory remarks and then highlight some key points in the draft. First, and as Claire has mentioned, and as required in the Mayor's letter of expectation, the Statement of Intent this year is in two parts. So part one covers the current operations until the end of the 6-month transition period. Part two covers public transport operations only, and that is expected to form the new Public Transport Council-controlled organisation Statement of Intent at the end of this transition. Second, you have this draft for Council consideration and feedback. We will take your high-level feedback today, along with the feedback we will get from Claire and her team, and reflect it in the final draft that we will submit by 31 July. And I want to reinforce what Claire has said, that we will be working very closely with Council in finalising the draft. My third last introductory point is that, as you may appreciate, the interim board had only time for some limited, although meaningful, input into this draft. This was especially in relation to the activities not asked for in the letter of expectation, but included as deliverables in this draft, drawing on those that were in the previous 3-year statement of intent. It's important, I think, to note that given the transition, the board has tasked management to provide us with more details about these, including status, timing and cost, and it is firm in its views that we should escalate any significant road-related activities to the council for approval or disapproval under the agreed operating rules before continuing with them further. And we are also very mindful, Your Worship, of the clear steer in the letter of expectation not to continue with non-urgent work in a time of significant change and transition. So in short, the interim board may have some changes to this draft along with those of council to be reflected in the final draft. Let me now just highlight a few key points in each of the 2 parts that make up this draft. Part 1 is structured as a direct response to the letter of expectation. It outlines the current activities for the period 1 July until the end of the transition, 6 months after royal assent, which I think we're all hoping might occur within the next week or so. Its purpose is very much to ensure continuity of core services and functions, save for the comments I just made, until handover of the road-related functions to the council and the set-up of the new public transport agency. Key themes include 1, to deliver on your key priorities for transport in Auckland, preparing for CRL by going live and preparing the wider network for better integration, continuing to deliver the network optimisation program, including in relation to traffic lights and with an added emphasis on the city centre, applying the risk-based New Zealand Guide to temporary traffic management, so hopefully fewer red cones in due course, continuing significant capital program delivery, the Eastern Busway, the level crossing removal, and finally focusing on value for money by working with council on standardised designs. So that's the first core part of part 1. The second is to implement the important transport reform, which includes setting up the new public transport agency, which you'll appreciate is not an insignificant activity in itself. And 3, to continue with the commitments made in the 2025-2028 Statement of Intent, subject where appropriate, as I have said, to council approval, to keep existing performance measures other than those related to public transport, which are in part 2. One final point, the targets for these performance measures are set at the existing 2026-27 level, and that recognises 2 things. First, the commitment to ensure a seamless transition, but I think secondly, and more realistically, that more ambitious targets are not possible in a time of transition and significant people change. That may not, however, be the case for part 2 targets, and I'll come to that in a moment. So let me move on to part 2, because this will form the statement of intent for the new public transport CCO. It sets out the objectives, activities, deliverables, performance measures and targets that are proposed for the new agency. Part 2 fully reflects the requirements of the letter of expectation, especially in a successful transition to the new CCO, delivery of public transport services, the public transport capital program, delivering value for money, and taking part in group shared services. Part 2 also takes a forward-looking view for the new entity and outlines 5 focus areas. for the new agency to deliver on your strategies, priorities and expectations. And they are an integrated public transport system, particularly driving increased patronage, seamless customer-first journeys, safe and accessible public transport, responsible stewardship and financial sustainability, and importantly, trust, transparency and accountability to Aucklanders, which is an aspect at the heart of transport reform. So we take that commitment very seriously. There is still, as Claire has said, a considerable level of uncertainty for the new council-controlled organisation, and until we have a confirmed organisational structures in place post-transition, it is hard to be specific in the statement of intent. And that's why some of the deliverables, performance measures and associated targets won't be able to be finalised until we have clarity around these things, but they will all be in the final draft and working with Claire and her team closely. I do want to note that for its part, the interim board's view is that more ambitious targets will need to be set than those applying currently, and we will work with the council's team hand in glove as to what they might be. But I do want to note that we'll obviously need working together to strike a responsible balance between pragmatism and ambition for the new council-controlled organisation, given we all know a successful transition takes time. And that's why we're proposing a three-horizon way ahead. Horizon 1 will be about consolidation to deliver all core services as expected and build a solid foundation for future years. In particular, it will be about the new entity earning its social licence with Auckland. And for that, a cultural change will be needed, which again we all know takes time. Horizon 2 will shift into the transformation stage, building on Horizon 1 to start pushing innovation and ambition into the business. We will look at targeted initiatives to make a significant impact in selected areas so we deliver better for our customers and Auckland more generally. And then Horizon 3 is about acceleration. All parts of the new entity should be working at optimum level by this stage and delivering a significant step change in the agency's performance, culture and reputation. The benefits of transport reform should be well and truly showing by this point. Auckland deserves no less. Ngā mihi.
Thank you. Okay, so we've three questions. Just a reminder that today is for questions in regards to the what is before us, so that you can ask the team who have prepared the statement of intent. We will have our opportunity to give our feedback and ask further questions on that and our feedback on the 19th of May. So this is about what it is they produce today and why, potentially. So if we can keep our questions to that. So first up, Tau.
Kia ora, Chair, thank you. I see the marae improvement target has been reduced. Any reason?
I'll leave. So,
I don't have the answer for that, but I will get back to you and find out in terms of the detail behind it. Sorry? I'll get the detail to you directly. I do not know, so I'll find out. Thank you.
I do just want to highlight again, obviously presenting this draft has been a bit different because we've had a change in board, and so even the interim board is still coming to grips with some of the detail in this draft.
So is there any assurance that Māori infrastructure commitments will survive the new transition?
Absolutely, and that is in the statement of intent. We've made very clear our commitment to working with Māori to honour our obligations under Te Tiriti. Have no question about that. It's key.
Thank you. Mayor Brown.
Thank you. I realise it's a bit tricky with the change coming up. So your part 2 is a bit more easy to do because it's much the same, although it should be called the Public Transport CECO.
will be, and we, the board, are
They've
certainly
paid
calling it
16,
the
that's
Public
good.
Transport Agency.
But in the part one, I can't see much on the upgraded AI intersections and we want plenty. I know we're going to have AT's current performance later in the meeting, and they've sort of aimed really low and still failed to achieve it. I mean, we want plenty of that. It's got to, and if they can't do it, we need to say so. If we can't do it, we need to say we've got to get some help. The same with dynamic lanes, you know. The importance of network optimisation is really what we're pinning our hopes on, bringing the Auckland public back with us, because there's been very little of that, well, not in my view, you know, including ridiculous painted arrows and poor timing of intersections and all that sort of stuff. Can we somehow or other, this is coming to us to receive, so we have to send it back again. It's ping pong, and the ping pong will go back saying we need more of that one way or another. Did you think you perhaps missed a chance to put more of that in, or you just getting the hang of it, as it were?
It's a bit of both. Let me just answer and then I'll ask Stacey to comment in more detail. We've already tasked management, Your Worship, to come back to us with a lot more detail around projects currently in place, including around traffic lights. So all of that needs to be worked through. You do need to give us a bit more time, but we are absolutely cognizant of the need to deliver to Aucklanders and to prioritise. And that may need pausing some projects, referring some projects to you for approval or disapproval, and really focusing on those that are a priority. But Stacey can speak to this in more.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's more about proof of concept. So once they've got proof of concept and tested, then it's something that they can meaningfully scale. And it's a bit like the SVL program, where in terms of this year has been about building the pipeline to make sure it's ready to go for the next few years so they can deliver and scale. And you can see that sort of come through and how it dovetails into the previous SOI on that basis. So hopefully the testing and the data from that can then be used going forward to scale more rapidly in terms of the solutions they're doing.
Daniel?
Yeah, thank you. It's a little bit difficult, obviously, given we're sort of dancing on a head of a pin around this process, but I just want to get clear. So, for example, if you look at the forecast and the target for the road maintenance, you're going up from 7 to 7.4. That's quite a big jump. It will have a material cost. I mean, so you know, can you just explain your level of confidence that you can achieve that jump in 1 year? I mean, I think that you need to achieve it, and there's a number of other can you explain, so we'll start with that one.
I'll jump into that one. In terms of that's what the team have proposed to do and deliver upon. Obviously, there's things in the equation right now that probably weren't part of that thinking process, such as the fuel crisis in terms of that and increased price aspects with that. But in terms of how they've done the profile, they've been building up in terms of getting to that amount. So that was linked to previous SOI as well, that we're going to do that incremental change to deliver more year on year. The program is there for it.
Okay, so then as we move from end of stage 1 into stage 2, I mean, how bankable is that? It's difficult because I'm kind of looking at the interim board to manage the organisation. So as we work towards an orderly process of, well, the last one out the door, switch the lights off, and then we start again something new. So I'm wanting to understand the level of confidence that stretch target can transition across in this new capital constrained world that we live in, where you do need to hit that target because we've been sailing well under that target for a long time.
I think that's a great question and something to seek assurance on in terms of the capability when it comes to road maintenance and the team delivering that. It is what I'd call rock solid in terms of that. You've really got the price component that's going to be leveraged in that particular area. So in terms of their continuity, it's definitely there. When it comes to the capital profile, there's a couple of things to consider. There has been a lot of attrition at AT over the last few months with upcoming reform changes that has impacted particularly on the leadership layers of the organisation there. That is a risk to delivering going forward in terms of that. And I think our overall advice is once that delivery machine slows down, it takes a long time to gear up again. So making sure we keep eyes on that and regularly report back so you know how that's going is important. But this also goes back to, do we deliver everything, or do we take that risk-based approach in terms of not delivering essential requirements? Mindful that local board expectations have been set already with the Kokiri process in terms of what they're getting, and it's also linked to other parts of our SOIs, such as local projects being delivered, 300 of those. So it's something that we have on watch is what I will say, and we will provide regular feedback as we go through that transition process so you know how it's tracking.
Thanks, Daniel. Julie.
Oh, kia ora. I wanted to ask about the issue here with the fact that we don't have the legislation through yet, and if you could just expand a little bit on, I guess, the risk there and yeah, what that's. I guess we've had a couple of different timeframes for that legislation. Both of those have passed, and I'm really mindful that we have 6 months from Royal Assent. Is there so firstly a little bit of comment on what's going on there, please? Any insight you can give, but also are there implications for us if this legislation isn't passed, say, for another month, and we are on a flight with our transition to have it done by September, October? Are there things that we just can't do on that time frame? Thanks.
Well, two things. First, as I understand, but I guess it's anybody's guess, but that the bill should pass its third reading very shortly, in which case the 6 months will start running. So that's point one. Point two, if there's a delay, that doesn't stop us continuing, as we have been in the last month, preparing for transition. So even though an odd situation where the interim board was replaced, then we had to become the permanent board, then we will go back to be the interim board. We are just progressing with the transition and particularly working with Steve Mutton and his team to do as much as possible because the board, and it's certainly my view, is we deliver on time. So that 6 months is key. So be assured that even if there is a delay, that doesn't stop us continuing as we are at quite some pace to be putting the transition in place.
Thank you. And this might be a question more for Steve, and so it might not be able to be answered here. Are there things that we cannot do until the 6 months after the Royal Assent that we might be ready to do earlier?
It probably is more a question of detail for Steve. There will be some. We're very alive that we've got to get the sequencing right. I'm the lawyer on the board, so I do not want either Auckland Transport or the council judicially reviewed. So yes, we must ensure we do the sequencing within the statutory framework, but I say again that as a pragmatic matter, we are rolling up our sleeves and just getting on with it.
Great, thanks very much. I guess it would just maybe be helpful for Steve at some point to come to us with some information. It doesn't have to be in this forum. About like I'm mindful of things like we give out tickets and we actually don't have the RCA to legally to do that. So I'd just like some reassurance in that space, but by memo or whatever would be fine. Thank you.
Totally understand, and it's a very good point.
Thank you. Ken.
Thank you. Tell me if this is in the wrong place and I've got myself tangled up, but I just, Councillor Newman spoke about maintenance, etc., and the cost increases. There's a tension there between AC's Auckland Transport's road maintenance and Healthy Waters road maintenance. and they're going through a water strategy process right now. Is there any correlation, is there any connection between what we're developing here and that?
I would imagine there is, but I'll let Dean or Stacey speak to that in detail.
Yeah, look, thank you for the question. Auckland Transport, from a road maintenance perspective, works very closely with Watercare and Healthy Waters and the other utility providers. The objective there is to signal at least 12 months out, if not longer where we can, what roads we're looking to do either rebuild or service maintenance on. So they've got a clear view of it, and that we can integrate our programs under our Dig Once approach. So look, that approach exists now, and with with the creation of a transport directorate, transport and infrastructure directorate at Auckland Council, I can imagine that relationship, particularly with Healthy Waters, will only get closer. Because we don't want them coming through a road, and they don't want to do this either, and then maintaining that portion of it, or restoring that portion for which they've done their works, and then Auckland Transport comes back, or vice versa, and then redoes the work. So all those opportunities exist now, and they'll continue to exist into the future, and my expectation is they'll get stronger and better.
Just further to that, we are aware and working quite closely with, Trudy and in the water space of what elements can we bring across from the water reform into the transport reform space. So we are looking at the statement of performance expectations and how we update and align and where we need to strengthen some of that activity. And that goes back to that point I was making earlier, and that we do need to look at our accountability suite and make sure that we're consistent and looking at all of these things.
Thank you. So to be quick, I'm trying to connect the Fix Auckland part of this to this big overview. So this morning I came through, and Regional Parks were repairing a car park for about the fourth time in 6 months. The contractor's coming from Warkworth. There's a manhole on the other side of the road that's popped and is obviously blocked, and it all bubbles up, crosses the road and causes that problem. I stopped and said to the contractors, the ranger who was there said, I've been in touch with Auckland Transport, we can't get the manhole fixed. So going back to what I'm looking at when I ask this question is that level of how this is going to work for the public. So again, just a comment to you, Mr. Chair, about the water strategy, our wastewater strategy, and what it's going to deliver, and what this is going to deliver working together. Thanks.
It's all coming to you in 6 months. And one thing that certainly the interim board is quite strong on, and we're preparing it, is a document of what reasonable steps we're going to take to ensure a successful transition for you. And one of those things is hopefully that we will literally have some good handover briefs to you on specific projects and things, so you know the status, where it's at, what are the upsides, what are the downsides, because that's always important in a transition, that you get good briefings. So we're hoping that that's one of the reasonable steps we as the interim board will be taking to ensure that all of that is picked up when it's handed over to you, Councillor.
Cool, okay, and I think one of the real positives out of this is that our Healthy Waters team will be working in and amongst the transport guys, which hasn't been happening. Some of them sort of been working in their silos, so they're actually potentially going to be in the same offices, so it'll be a good thing. Shane.
Thank you. I think you missed Mike, Chair. Sorry, Councillor Lee. I'll just jump in. So I've got two cues, essentially on behalf of my constituents. So first and foremost, looking at the draft budget on page 13, approved in February 26. Road safety budget of 41.2 million. Well, do you think, in your opinion, this will be enough to deliver the DSI reduction targets that we have planned in the SOI?
Again, you would know, Councillor, that's one of the things the interim board is trying to work through to get more detail. This budget obviously is just the budget as if Auckland Transport was going to have all this for 12 months, but of course it's not. But Stacey may like to comment on that in more detail.
Shane, yes, you know, infrastructure is one part of the equation there in terms of that, and the safety strategy has been definitely turning around really great results in collaboration with NZ Police, increasing enforcement, which has actually seen the most notable sort of measurement in recent times. The detail behind that is what you want to know in terms of whether it is high-risk intersections versus other initiatives, and we'll get that layer of detail.
Really appreciate that. Last question. You know, since we started all of this, we've had a war in Iran. So what has been adjusted in terms of an approach to respond to high fuel prices and potential scarcity of fuel?
Well, the board, of course, is very, very across the fuel crisis. We've been working through the scenarios as per the government policy plan. It's top of mind.
I can probably just add a little bit there, sorry. The budget you've got here at this stage is allocation of funding informed by what's available through the various activity classes from NZTA because they are a co-funder. So that's an important point. It's informed by government policy and transport investment. When it comes to the impact of fuel pricing on this budget, that hasn't been taken into account at this stage. We'll be giving advice to the board about what we think that looks like in the coming year. And then I think we may have even shared this at the last committee meeting. Then there'll be a choice. Do we look to use efficiency to protect certain classes of investment? Do we reduce the investment? Or do we look at other sources of funding? But we're yet to work through what the real impact on the coming year's budget is. And we will give you choices because this committee will be responsible, generally speaking, for this budget, and then you'll have to make the trade-offs accordingly.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. It was good to tease that out. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Mike, and apologies for leaping over and taking Shane before you, mate.
No problem. It's not the first time I've raised it, but I guess you have to keep on raising these matters until a message hits home. But obviously this is a significant change, and we hear a lot about transparency and accountability. That stuff is easy to say, but in terms of informing the public, I think we have a task ahead of us to enable transparency, to better enable accountability. What I see in the report, and all the way through, with all due respect, the chair's forward, is the word the new transport CCO. What the hell is that, really? The new transport CCO? Surely, and as the mayor has said, it should be the distinguishing feature is that it is a new public transport. And it's not even a CCO, to be honest. If anything, it's a GCO. So it's a new public transport entity, but all the way through, and authors and authorisers, please note, and Mr. Chair, please note, all the way through these documents, public transport or public transport entity or public transport CCO does not appear. It's a new transport CCO. It's not going to help clarity at all, given the changes. So I'll make the point again, and I'll keep on making that point, because this may be bureaucratic habit, God forbid it's Freudian, but we need to start putting more emphasis on public in public transport if we are going to stop failing in that important part of our responsibility. Thank you.
I don't disagree with you, and certainly going forward, the language needs to be very much the new public transport agency.
Good idea.
Thank you. Okay, no further questions. Someone like to move? Thank you, Chris. Seconded, Shane. Thank you, team. You can step back, and just want to acknowledge Stacey.
Chair, can I just give them a piece of an announcement if they want to know? The parliamentary schedule's come out for today. It's the second order of the day today after the corrections first reading. That's only a very short brief. So the committee of the whole will take place this afternoon and be done. The third reading is a very much perfunctory, just a series of speeches. It's likely the bill will be legislation by the end of the week, and you'll get a royal assent maybe on Monday.
That's good to hear, and we'll be back to being the interim board.
Thank you.
Oh, is that
And,
right? We'll switch back again.
And I just want to acknowledge Stacey, and I think her first sort of thing today is the interim CEO. So well done on that appointment, Stacey, and look forward to, I'm sure the whole committee look forward to working with you. Okay, any discussion, debate? None, I'll put it then. All those in favour say aye. Aye. And against, carried. My intent is to try and roll through the whole agenda before we break for lunch. So the next item up is the